Okay everyone, everything we have been doing in class has led up until this moment. We are about to begin your lesson plan project, which is going to account for 30% of your grade. I really want you to feel comfortable with the process of planning. I do know, however, this is going to change completely. It's going to change based upon, what subject you end up teaching, what grade level you end up teaching, and where you end up teaching. But I still want you to feel comfortable with this process because planning is such a huge component of being an educator. So for this project, you're going to create a year-long plan, a unit plan, and 3 lesson plans. So I did want to show you this visual that gives you the difference between them. Your year-long plan is everything you're going to be teaching throughout the year. So in North Carolina, that's 185 days. What are you going to be doing for 185 days? It's going to include all your objectives, your resources, any themes, and then year-long plans are typically required by your administration. I know for me as an educator, it just depended upon what school I taught. When I taught in Durham, I had to turn in every single lesson plan. When I taught here at Beaufort Middle, I had to turn in my year-long plan. So again, it just depends on your administrator and your school. Unit plans are essentially a theme. It could be ranging for 2 weeks to 4 weeks to 5 weeks to 6 weeks. This is all of a series of lessons put together that are themed around one particular subject. So for example, maybe I have a unit plan on circles, which I've been using as an example in this class. And then you have lesson plans. Lesson plans are your day-to-day. Lesson plans can range over a course of maybe 1 to 2 days, maybe even 3 days. They are very specific. They are listing out every single activity, every essential question. This is talking about one particular topic. So for example, if my unit is on circles, maybe my specific lesson plan for that day is finding the area of circles. So let's look at each one of these. So a year-long plan, again, we're talking about 185 days. Why would you do a year-long plan? This is going to be your roadmap for the year. So whenever I did my year-long plan, I would always do a day by day. So I would print out a calendar from August until June, and I would pencil in, notice I said pencil, because your year-long plan is certainly going to change, especially as a first-year teacher. I think by the time I got into like year 5 and year 6, I looked back at my first year and I was like, what are you doing? So it is going to change. Write it in pencil. It helps you pace your content. So you need to cover every standard that's listed in your standard course of study. If you don't develop a year-long plan, you end up spending so much time on specific standards, you get to the end of the year and you're like, oh my gosh, like I didn't cover everything I needed to cover. So a year-long plan keeps you on pace. If you do have testing, so again, it just depends on the county you're in. So some counties do benchmark testing, so that might be every quarter or every 9 weeks. And then of course, if you're in grades 3 through high school, you're going to have end of year testing, end of course testing. So it helps keeps you on track so your students are ready for those tests. So how do you create a year-long plan? It's really focused around your standards. You really need to read, understand, print your standards. It's going to make sure that you're accountable for covering every standard. Now, notice in this example here, standards can be broken down. So it's not like you look at one standard and you're like, okay, well, I need to cover this in 1 day. No. Standards can be broken down into different units. You can chunk them into weeks. Also, some standards are related to one another. So for example, again, I'm comfortable with 7th grade math. In 7th grade math, you teach proportions, and that's in one standard, but in another standard in geometry, it talks about proportional reasoning and using proportions to solve for missing sides. So could I combine those standards into one unit? Yes, you could. So it's really important that you read, that you understand your standards, and you look for ways that you can either break apart a standard, or maybe you can combine some pieces of different standards and include them into one unit. So speaking of unit plan, again, a unit plan is a big idea or theme. So you've looked at your standards and you're like, okay, like for example, in this picture here, I can create a unit on the number system. And so in this unit may span, again, it could be a series of a couple weeks, it could be 6 weeks, completely up to you. Unit plans can typically be used from year to year with some modifications. Within your unit plan, just like in this picture here, you're going to have a breakdown of each individual lesson. So if my unit plan is the number system over here, maybe we'll talk about adding and subtracting integers is one of my lessons. Multiplying and dividing integers is another one of my lessons. And so some questions that you want to ask yourself when you develop a unit: is this entire unit aligned with my standards? Within the unit, you're also going to come up with your strategies, your teaching strategies. This is what we've been talking about all in this class. Have I used, you can see the big picture in this unit, have I used a balance of teaching strategies? Have I used a balance of, assessments that are going to meet the needs of my diverse learners? Also, by developing a unit plan and you sequence your lesson, you're going to make sure, like, oh, have I sequenced these clearly? Does it make sense that I'm starting at these kind of lower order thinking skills and I am developing some higher order thinking skills as I keep going? And then when you develop a unit plan, you're going to come up with a list of all the formative and summative assessments that you would like to use in this unit. And it really, again, gives you that big picture of, okay, at the end of this unit, when I give this summative assessment, is it measuring the standards and the objectives that I've created here? Now, finally, so you've got your year-long plan, 185 days, you've got your units that you're going to do throughout the year, and now we've got our day-to-day. You've been doing this in this class. Now it's just time for us to put it together. So this is where our backward design comes into play. So each one of our lesson plans, we're going to go through each one of the stages. What are our desired results? What kind of assessments are we going to be using in this lesson? And then what are our specific learning activities? So these are the daily steps that you're going to be using to complete your entire unit. I'm not asking that you come up with every single lesson that you're going to do in this unit. I'm asking you to come up with 3 of them. As a first-year teacher, it is very important that your lesson plans be detailed because you need a roadmap of how you're going to teach this lesson. It's going to keep you organized. It's going to provide you structure. When you are doing this project, I expect your lesson plans to be detailed enough so if I were going to pick up your lesson plan and teach it, there would be no question of what I would be doing in that lesson. So for some of you, the feedback that I gave you in stage 3 when you submitted that assignment was that it was not detailed enough. So for some of you, I noticed you were just like, well, I would just do this activity on this topic. If I was picking this up and I said, okay, I need to do some activity on this topic, I have no idea what you're talking about. Be very, 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 very specific. Detailed enough, again, step by step. I know exactly what you would be doing in that lesson. To me, if I had to have an analogy of lesson planning is kind of like following a recipe. So if you think about when you're cooking a recipe for the first time, if you're like me, you are glancing at that recipe like every 5 seconds. Like, wait a minute, I need this, and this is step 1, and this is step 2. Like, I gotta look at it over and over and over again the first time. And even the second time I cook it and the third time I cook something, I'm still gonna be referencing that lesson or that recipe over and over and over again. After you get some years under your belt as an educator, you might not have to glance at the recipe so frequently. Like, you're like, okay, I've got this now. And then when you're a seasoned educator, you're like, I just need to write down what topic I'm doing for today in my agenda book. Like, I've done this so many times, I don't need to glance back at the recipe anymore. Granted, lesson plans, again, I don't care if you're a 15-year, 20-year, 30-year vet teacher, you're always coming up with new and exciting ways to revamp your lessons and make them bigger and better, but it just becomes so much easier when you become a veteran teacher. I will say for me, one of the most overwhelming parts of being a first-year teacher was having to create everything. But as I'm going to show you in this project, which I'm going to give you the directions in just a second, there are a lot of resources out there to help teachers. A lot of things you don't have to create from scratch. We are one big community where we can borrow from one another. So I'm going to show you those resources in just a second. But just know, it is going to become easier as you get the years under your belt. It won't be quite as overwhelming as it is right now. So let's take a look at your project. So this project is going to span over the course of 3 weeks. It is a huge project. I realize that. That is why it's 30% of your grade, and that's why we're going to spend 3 weeks on it. So this week, all you have to do is an attendance check-in. So after you read over the project, I want you to just check in with me. Tell me if you have any concerns. Are you excited about something? What do you foresee learning? Share any resources. You guys are, a lot of you are teaching the same subject area. So work together on this. 2 heads are better than 1. So share resources with each other. So this is the actual assignment. So the first document here is just the directions. I'm not going to read over these to you in detail, but it's going to go over what you're required for your year-long plan, your unit plan, and you only again have to do 3 lesson plans. This page is so important for you to read over. This is 30% of your grade. This is the grand finale, really, of this class. So I am going to be grading this pretty strictly. Please make sure that you read over the rubric and how you can score well in this project. Please make sure you read that over before you get started. Now, the first document is your year-long plan, and so everything that's in red, by the way, in these documents, I want you to delete that. So anything in red is just me giving you tips, or in this case, I'm giving you an example. Delete that, and I want you to put your own. So you're going to tell me your grade level, your subject. You're going to list for me in this column your breakdown of your units, how many weeks you're going to spend on these units. So what I want you to do, like for example, you see me here, we're going to assume there's 36 weeks in the year. That would account for your 185 days. Now typically a year-long plan, I would suggest somebody doing daily, but since we don't have the academic calendar for when you're going to be teaching, we're going to do it weekly. So let's say weeks 1 through 5, you're spending on your unit, which is proportional reasoning. And then I would come down here and do my next unit, and maybe that's weeks 6 through 8 or 6 through 10. So we're going to do, again, a total of 36 weeks here. You're going to tell me what standards are being covered in this particular unit. What are your understandings? So what are students going to understand by completing that unit? And what are your essential questions from that unit? And again, you're going to plan out 36 weeks. Now, after you finish your year-long plan, you're going to choose one of your units. You don't have to do every single unit. You're just going to choose one unit, and you're going to develop a unit plan. So I'll show you what that looks like here. So you're going to tell me your unit title. How many weeks do you plan to spend on this unit? Give me a summary of the unit. Tell me what standards you're covering. What essential questions? What big ideas are you covering in this unit? What learning tasks or active learning activities are students going to do? What skills are they going to acquire? What vocabulary are you covering? This is a big one. What assessments are you given in this unit, both formative and summative assessments? How would you differentiate this unit for students with special needs or for different learning styles? What technology or resources are you going to need to incorporate this unit? And then this right here is a plan for each one of your individual lessons. So if your unit is, let's say it's a 2-week unit, that would be 10 lessons. You can add more rows here, by the way. What would your lesson titles be? How long? So are you going to spend 1 day on that lesson? Is it a 2 to 3 day lesson that you're going to spread out? Again, this is just for one unit. Now, within that unit, I want you to choose 3 lessons that you're going to write me lesson plans for. This format should look very, very familiar because you've done this already in this class. Now don't choose the one that you've already done. These are three new lessons for that particular unit that you've just chosen. And again, I shouldn't have to really go over this piece of it because it's something that you've already done in this class. The big feedback I want to give you though is make sure, for those of you that I told you in your feedback before on stage 3 that your lesson plan wasn't detailed enough, make sure you give me detailed, what is your opener going to be? What is your activity going to be? Specific directions on how you're going to incorporate or teach that lesson or teach that activity. What material you're going to need? What is your closer going to look like? And again, that's 3 lessons. That is your entire project, your year-long plan, your unit plan, and your 3 lessons. All of those are going to be turned in under one category, which is your lesson plan project. Now, I mentioned a while ago, there are so many resources. You don't have to create this from scratch. Now, depending upon the county in which you teach, a lot of counties will actually give you your year-long plan. They will give you unit plans, and they will give you lesson plans, which is awesome. Now, you can adapt them for yourself, but it at least gives you a starting point. Now, unfortunately, I do not have Carteret counties, but I did pull some counties in North Carolina that I feel did such an awesome job of helping their teachers, especially their first year teachers, with getting started. So I'll just show you, for example, Moore County. So this is Moore County's website. If you click on it here, again, I'm going to do 7th grade math. So if I clicked into here and I clicked on 7th grade math, this is what it's going to give me. This is what we call a pacing guide. This is their year-long plan for 7th grade math. So it's saying, okay, weeks 1 through 5 of the first quarter, I'm going to do proportional relationships. That's my unit. Weeks 6 through 9, I'm going to do reasoning with rational numbers. Notice they have a benchmark test that students take after that. And then in the second quarter, this would be weeks 10, 11, 12, I'm going to do reasoning about expressions. Week 13, 14, 15, I'm going to do reasons about equations. So they break down for you all the different units, and they tell you how many weeks they expect for you to spend on them, which is just such an awesome resource. Now notice they also give unit plans. So proportional reasoning, if I clicked on that unit plan there, this is what it's going to bring up. I do not want you to copy and paste this from Moore County's webpage. I want you to create your own. However, what an awesome resource for you to get started with this. And so my hope is that you teach in a county that will provide you, look, they even give ways to differentiate, they give you lessons, they give you videos, they give you activities. Even if you do not teach for Moore County schools, I would probably keep this webpage bookmarked because wow, like they do it right for especially their beginning teachers. And so this is essentially everything that you need, and they do this for every grade level, and they do it for every subject area. Now I'll also say I posted Halifax County. They do something similar. Dare County will give this resource for middle school and high school if you're teaching middle school and high school. I also want you to keep in mind that you should have your standard course of study. So this is the 7th grade math standard course of study. Remember, you uploaded this as part of this class for your particular grade and subject area. Make sure you have that. I would encourage you to have it printed because I do want to see in your year-long plan that you've covered every single standard that's listed here. Now, in terms of resources for lesson planning, most any grade and subject area, there are lesson plans already created that are out there that you can take and modify and make it your own. Again, I don't want you to copy and paste. I do want you to create your own, but feel free to use these as a resource. OER Commons is an awesome page that has free, this is called Open Educational Resources. So you can filter it by subject, by lower, upper, primary, and then you can do a search and then filter out just lesson plans, which is so awesome. Read, Write, Think has a lot of literacy lesson plans. If you are teaching history, this is where you need to go. Such an awesome database that is provided for North Carolina. It's called carolinak12.org. It has just about every lesson plan you can think of under the sun for history. You can break it down by grade level, you can break it down by topics, and these are detailed lesson plans that you can use as a resource. STEM lesson plans, so if you're teaching science, technology, engineering, math, this is a list of free resources, free lesson plans for you. Share My Lesson is where teachers go, and again, just like it sounds, they share lesson plans. So you can feel free to go there, grab some lesson plans for you to use. PBS also has lesson plans and resources. It's kind of hard to weed through PBS because there's just so much there, but I would encourage you to, because they're free, they're great, they're vetted. Use all of these links, and there's others out here too, but these are just ones that I know of that provide free lesson plans. That's key. Now, you know, Teachers Pay Teachers is another one that's going to pop up in your resource. I love Teachers Pay Teachers. These are teachers that are posting their lesson plans and their activities, but yes, you have to pay for it. Yes, I was one of those teachers that posted my lesson plans and did make some money off of Teachers Pay Teachers, so feel free to do that too. But just know you'll have to pay for those. I am here for you. I am here to answer any questions about this project. Yes, go ahead and get started this week. Yes, give me your concerns and your attendance check-in. Yes, give me your feedback. I just really want this project to be meaningful for you. I want it to be something that you can use in the future. Again, if you have questions, I'm here for you. Just let me know. All right, happy planning.